I'll speak into it,
Speak
but
into
it won't
it.
amplify.
I have 5 pictures here that were done by Jim Till, from a photographer from St. Paul, and we've mounted them on these backboards and boards. And all of them are mines. One of them is from Dunn County. This second one here is Dunn County. The others are from Chippewa County. I just want to remind everybody that these are not sand and gravel pits. These are definitely quarried, strip mined pieces or mines, and all of them are, I think all of them virtually are expanding, and there's no permit needed unless they are expanding to a great amount. Recently, one of these mines, this one, is going to be expanding another 275 acres, and they are just in the process of getting their reclamation permits at this time. This picture is a picture of the processing plant in Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. As you see, there are 2 huge piles of sand outside, and louder. Two large piles of sand outside. Their intent is to eventually cover them with concrete domes to prevent freezing. They're going to be heated. However, their secondary reasons are because there are emissions and or erosion from these huge piles. In the summer, when we've had lots of heavy winds and drought conditions, these piles become just white, and you can see the sand coming off from them, or the dust, I should say, coming off from them. So just a quick review. I think these are so significant pieces. A picture is worth 1,000 words. Please mark them in your brain. I've been working on this for 5 years. Never did of my wildest dreams ever I imagined that there would be a processing plant in the city of Chippewa Falls with 1,100 trucks coming in, 900 railroad cars, and residences nearby. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat.
Ma'am, did you spell your name, please?
It's Popple, P-O-P-P-L-E.
P-O-P-P-L-E.
L-E.
Your first name, ma'am?
Patricia, or Pat.
You're from where?
Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. And I've been involved for 5 years.
That was kind of the preview, and now we'll start the press conference. Thanks for doing that, Pat. I'm Bobby King with the Land Stewardship Project, and first I want to thank everyone who came up on the bus today. We got Winona County, Houston County, Wabasha County, Goodhue County, Fillmore County. I know it was an early start and a cold day, and thanks everybody for being here. Olmsted County. Who else did I forget? Blue Earth. Who else did I forget?
Alameda County.
All right. Thank you. Iowa. Thank you. LeSueur. Great. Yeah. Okay. We're here because of what Pat Popple just talked about. We do not want industrial scale frac sand mining to happen in Minnesota like it's happened in Wisconsin. It's destroyed people's quality of life, their rural communities, their air, their water, their farms. And we need this legislative session, state legislation, that will accomplish 4 things. We want strong state level permitting standards. Pat talked about the lack of state level involvement in Wisconsin and the disaster it's been. We want a state moratorium on impacted communities while those permits are being figured out. We want an in-depth study such as a generic environmental impact statement to help set those standards and to help local governments in making decisions. And we want permitting fees and taxes that cover the cost of the industry, the damage to the roads and the bridges and the cost of the regulation. And we know we can have these strong state level permitting standards and keep our local controls strong. That's how we regulate a lot of other industries. First, I want to introduce David Williams, who's a township supervisor from Preble Township in Fillmore County, to talk about his involvement.
Good morning. My name is David Williams. I'm a retired business lawyer living on a farm from Lanesboro down in Fillmore County. I'm an elected township supervisor for some 8 years. 2 years ago, many of us in southeastern Minnesota thought silica was just a mineral from which glass is manufactured. Over the last 2 years, all of us have learned much more about silica sand, the potential havoc it can cause in our communities. All of us are familiar with the small limestone quarries that dot our communities. We are their customers for road gravel, farm sand, and construction aggregate. But there's a huge difference between these small aggregate quarries that we welcome and the large industry-scale silica sand mining operations that begin to find their ways in our community. These large mining and processing sites, 100, 300, 500, 1,000 acres, they propose to mine around the clock 6 days a week. They want to consume large quantities of water from our aquifers to wash the sand. One proposed mine in my area submitted an application to the DNR to appropriate 198 million gallons of water a year. It's outrageous. They want to haul sand from the mining sites at the rate of hundreds of trucks per day from each mining site. I was a member of the Fillmore County committee that studied sand mining. I drafted the mining ordinance that was approved last November by the Fillmore County Board of Commissioners. Mining supporters argue that local government can resolve all the issues without state government intervention. They argue that state entry into the silica sand mining debate would only duplicate what local government is already doing. They're wrong. There are substantial and independent reasons why state government involvement is justified and needed. Some of the following areas. The vast protected state-owned forest lands that we have in southeastern Minnesota could be leased to mining operators unless the state government stops it. There are numerous state highways in southeastern Minnesota that are strategic conduits for the hauling of high-volume silica sand toward rail and barge destinations. Many of these state highways and roads run directly through small towns. Only the state can provide some regulations so that these towns do not get burdened with this unwelcome pass-through traffic that can easily be 1,000 trucks a day, suddenly overwhelming them. Several proposed mining areas contain clustered mining sites across county borders. Those could present potential cumulative impacts from these clustered mining sites that have to be considered by state agencies, that a county agency simply cannot resolve the problem. Local agencies do not have the scientific ability to determine the adverse public health impact from the use of flocculants and other chemicals extracted with this silica sand, used to process this sand. Only state agencies have those scientific skills and knowledge to determine the adverse public health impact from the use of flocculants and other toxins. Silica sand mining and processing operators seek to consume large quantities of water from our regional aquifers and water tables just to wash sand. The DNR must develop more stringent water appropriation standards than those that exist right now. Recent experience has shown that when local government decision makers cannot find answers to questions about public health, environment, transportation, and economic needs, these decision makers freeze and make no effort to provide solutions to possible silica sand mining problems. That's why state agencies and state government needs to enter into the picture and help to develop some solutions to problems that cannot be resolved by local land use control people. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Next, I'd like to introduce Lynn Shane. She's a city councilor from the city of Wabasha. And I'm also going to put a press advisory back on the table that has the spelling of everybody's name and their title.
But if you want to know, it's S-C-H-O-E-N. If you had asked me about frac sand a year ago, I wouldn't have been able to tell you much about it. But since then, I've gotten a huge education from my Wisconsin friends and neighbors. This is an industry at odds with the economy of Wabasha, the town I am here to represent. We are an historic Mississippi River town and proud of home of the National Eagle Center, which attracts over 100,000 visitors a year. Tourism-related businesses in Wabasha County generated over $1.5 million in taxes. We have over 700 jobs attributed to the tourism industry just in Wabasha County alone. We are part of the Great River Road. Thousands of bikers, antique cars, bicyclists drive the loop around Lake Pepin, starting with a 100-mile garage sale in May and ending with Oktoberfest activities. We are known for our fishing tournaments, our quaint B&Bs, gift shops, wonderful restaurants and breweries, and a peaceful, safe place to experience the great Mississippi River and the stunning landscape she has created. We need to stand up for our small tourism businesses and for all small businesses. Because of the location of a large frac sand transfer station being built currently in Wabasha, many local businesses in the area will be negatively impacted, including probably our local hospital and clinic. One of my constituents had the perfect comment at a meeting recently when she said, "Why should my daycare business be any less important than a frac sand hauling business?" The conflict is real and growing. Who can answer how many Wisconsin patrons will choose not to cross our interstate bridge to have surgery at our hospital or eat at one of our many restaurants because it's not worth fighting against 900 trucks running across the bridge each day just to haul sand? A town the size of Wabasha doesn't have the personnel to monitor the impacts of frac sand businesses. We're concerned about our water and our air quality. We have safety concerns from the volume of diesel trucks that these hauling businesses will create. We need a state permitting process in addition to our local conditional use permits to make sure we mitigate some of the damage that is sure to come our direction. We need a state moratorium so we can establish this permitting process. Beautiful little towns like Wabasha contribute to the high quality of life we have come to brag about here in Minnesota. The state needs to get involved to help us protect our home. My home. Go Minnesota.
Kelly Stanich is going to speak next. She's a member of the Houston County Frac Sand Study Committee, and Houston County is among the most impacted counties, and actually their county board's taken up the issue this morning.
Yeah, Kelly.
Thank you. I've been working with Commissioner Justin Zimieski and many others in Houston County on the county's Frac Sand Study Committee. We've been struggling for about a year now to figure out how we can keep this industry from causing the destruction we've seen in Wisconsin. Commissioner Zimieski regrets he couldn't be here in person today, as he did have to be at a county board meeting at which they will consider extending the moratorium for another year. He's written a letter to the committee, and I'll read some key portions of it. Copies of this letter are on the table. Excuse me. Dear chairs and committee members, I believe it is critical that the legislature act on this issue of industrial-scale silica sand mining, processing, and transportation in this legislative session. Houston County is using the zoning powers we have to control this industry through local ordinances, including moratoriums. But many of the potential negative impacts of this industry cannot be addressed by ordinances at the county level. Houston County does not have the staff or expertise to set pollution standards or monitor for water and air quality. That must be done by a state agency like the MPCA. To protect our state from the harm that the frac sand industry has caused in Wisconsin, I believe you must pass legislation that accomplishes the following goals. 1. Establishes Minnesota Pollution Control Agency permits for frac sand mining, transportation, and processing that protects air and water quality. The concept of the state requiring an MPCA permit to control pollution and counties requiring local land use permits is how many other industries are already regulated, including large-scale feedlots, ethanol facilities, and solid waste facilities. If pollution control is not done at the state level by the MPCA, it will not happen in any comprehensive way that protects our region. Number 2, order a generic environmental impact statement that will help in establishing state permitting standards and to better understand the potential impact of the industry on the region and how it can be addressed. The GEIS will be useful to local government in making decisions about local ordinances and permits. There are questions about the frac sand industry that can only be addressed through a regional analysis. Number 3, enact a state-level moratorium on any new industrial silica sand facilities that allows the time to create MPCA permits and to complete a GEIS. Western Wisconsin let the industry develop without any state-level minimum requirements, and its citizens are suffering the consequences. We cannot let this happen here in Minnesota. We have to get this right the first time. Governor Dayton had it right when he said about the frac sand industry in Minnesota, "I don't want it to be like feedlots where the industry got ahead of government." Unless you take quick action on the above 3 items, this is exactly what will happen, and the citizens of Houston County and others throughout southeast Minnesota will suffer. Thank you.
I'm going to put a copy of the letter out on the table back there, but actually that was a letter from Commissioner Zimnieski, but this morning he passed out a very similar letter at the county board, and every member of Houston County, every board member signed a letter asking for the exact same thing. So Houston County Commissioners are unified. I'll pass a copy of that letter out during the testimony. Next up is Jody McElrath. She's a planning commission member in Florence Township in Goodhue County, and she's president of Save Our Bluffs. Jody.
Thank you.
Jody.
I want to make a comment, and that is that the best frac sand in the world is in the worst possible area, the driftless area of southeastern Minnesota. I can't imagine what official at any level would allow permitting for industrial frac sand mining without studying all the effects that this could potentially have on the community. Dr. Wayne Pearson, Mayo Clinic, submitted a letter to each of the committee members today, and he and Dr. Hillary Carpenter from the Minnesota Department of Health agree on one thing: it's not just sand. Dr. Pearson has put over 400 hours of study into the frac sand health issues, as well as the concentrated diesel fumes being a carcinogen, and also the flocculants, the polyacrylamides that they treat the wash water with. Dr. Crispin Pierce, University of Wisconsin, in Eau Claire, has also done some new research and done air quality tests in areas around and outside the mining facilities, up to 1 mile or 2 miles. And he's found that there are significant concentrations of fugitive dust from these operations in the air, and their concentration levels are somewhat concerning. There are also tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars that have been spent cleaning up our rivers and streams. We need to protect those. As far as socioeconomic issues go, there's a flicker effect, according to Professor Stephen Deller, University of Wisconsin, from mining's boom-bust economy. He also states that there is a no multiplier effect, no positive multiplier effect to the economy because of these temporary boom-bust situations in mining economies. There are also over $198 million being spent on tourism from Goodhue County all the way down to the Iowa border, as well as 5,400 jobs. Those dollars and those jobs stand to be jeopardized with the onset of large industrial frac sand mining. They may be replaced by jobs that are going to be dependent on whether or not the price of sand goes up or down, and the communities will not recover easily from their loss of tourism dollars and jobs in a boom-bust economy of mining. There's also a destruction of agricultural soils that are one of our most valuable resources in the state. And according to Professor Deller again, and I quote him, agricultural land taken out of production for mining will take decades to return to productive use. What's the ultimate price our communities want to pay in this? Without state bipartisan action, it'll be impossible to see the cumulative effects of sand mining in the communities. The overarching requirement is a moratorium, a GEIS, and MPCA standards and permitting at the state level. And this is before the businesses get established.
Thank you, Jody. Thanks, everybody, for sharing. And I think it's clear that citizens, locally elected officials, there's a consensus growing around what the state legislature needs to do this session to curtail this problem. Strong state-level permitting standards that work with local control, a moratorium while those are being developed, a generic environmental impact statement to help develop those standards and to give local governments more information, and permitting fees and taxes on the industry to cover the damage to the roads and cover the cost of regulations. I think we're going to have a really good hearing. A lot of the folks that didn't speak are here to testify too. I want to also say up with us we've got Minnesota Trout Unlimited, John Linchensky. We've got League of Women Voters, Gwen Myers is here. Conservation Federation, Gary Botzik. We got Donna Buckby with Houston County Protectors. Jim Gurley with Citizens Against Sand Mining in Winona County. Don Arnosti, I think, is here with Audubon, Minnesota. Amy Nelson with Save Our Bluffs. So we'll take questions now if the press has any questions of me or others.
Well, the promoters of this will say that there's communities in southeastern Minnesota and southwestern Wisconsin that have been struggling economically for many decades, other than tourism, and that these folks need to have jobs. Can somebody respond to that?
I mean, I'll say right away that we can't have jobs that destroy the existing businesses and destroy people's quality of life and ruin their air and water. But do Lynn, Shane, or any other local folks want to chime in on that? You got other thoughts?
Would you identify yourself again?
Lynn Shane, City Council, Wabasha, Minnesota.
Last name spelled?
SCHOEN. I keep hearing this jobs argument, and I'm not going to take it on right now, except that I can tell you when a certain group came into our town and promised all kinds of jobs, and the reality is they're bringing people with them to do a lot of the jobs because of the qualifications they need. The reality is there are going to be a handful of local guys that will probably be picked up as truck drivers, but again, a number of them are already employed by this company in Wisconsin. They're bringing them with them. The business, the nature of the business, we're looking at because of where in our town this transload facility is sitting, it's putting at risk a number of other businesses around it. A medical supply company produces some items I don't want to identify because I'm not here to speak on their behalf. The way our city is set up, these trucks are going to have to go through main chunks of our neighborhoods. And so you're hitting daycares, you're hitting local construction guys. There's a little tiff going on about whose property is situated where and can you drive across. And I mean, there's a lot of push and shove because Everybody wants access to that rail. And in the process, they're pushing a lot of our small business people away and saying, you know, our business is more important than yours because we're going to make so much more money.
Yeah.
But what I don't see is who's going to benefit from that money. It's not coming to our community. It's not coming to our state. They're not being taxed or monitored or assessed, any of those pieces. But we are going to have to pay for the roads. We are going to have to pay for any residual issues like, oh, now we're going to have to move our parks because our baseball diamonds are at the foot of the bridge, and you're going to have 900 trucks coming over with diesel. You probably aren't going to have your Little League playing there. We're going to have to pay those things. So jobs, you know, not all jobs are created equally.
Is Vince ready here? Yes. Vince? I neglected to bring Vince up. I'm sorry. But Vince, why don't you share your thoughts? And I know a lot of your thoughts are